Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today I'm pleased to announce I've got a very special guest. Her name's Carolann DeSelms. And whereabouts in the USA are you from, Carolann?
I grew up in Colorado, which is in the Rocky Mountain area. And I came to Los Angeles about 30 years ago.
Excellent. So all the way from Los Angeles, we've got Carolann speaking to us. Welcome, Carolann.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Now, in today's episode, Carolann is going to be talking about how we can specifically live the good life and what living the good life actually means in the context of relationships. So, Carolann, tell us, first of all, what sort of got you interested in doing what you're doing now, and in particular in the context of the niche of relationships?
Yes. Well, I had a toxic relationship with my husband for 16 years. I tried to fix him. He was interested in alcohol, not me. And of course, that didn't work. That does not make a good relationship at all. So after divorcing, I discovered Al-Anon, and I discovered that I made mistakes too. Very surprising. And then after that, as I went through understanding myself better and better, I began to understand that other people have problems. They're not bad. I don't think anyone is bad. We have difficulties in learning how to relate to one another. But I think everyone, given the right circumstances, can learn to have good relationships, no matter who they are, even people in prison.
I agree. Even those people that have been in abusive relationships and are probably identifying either themselves or their partner as being somebody that's been the abuser. I think with the right tools and information and awareness, those relationships can be absolutely turned around. And it's just unfortunate that that education isn't out there.
Yes, true enough. And I discovered that you can't really try to run someone else's life. You can't. Manipulation is not a good thing ever to do. And trying to figure out how I can get this guy to pay attention to me really has nothing to do with making a good relationship at all. I had to learn that I had things to learn. Oh, did I manipulate? Oh my gosh, I did. But I didn't realize that at the time. I was so busy trying to get my own way. And so when the breakup occurred, I was able to look at it from a different point of view. And I remember one time in a meeting, a woman said, in response to something I was saying, she said, I remember when I felt so sorry for myself too. And I immediately felt an indignant reaction. How dare she suggest that I might have been on a pity pot? But of course, I also realized she's probably right. So I continued to do that, and I continued to have the support of that group until I found a spiritual program, which gave me even more ability to look at myself and others with compassion.
Yeah.
And that includes myself. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's most importantly starts with yourself. Isn't that right?
Oh, yes. And, sometimes people will say, oh God, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? But I always tell people, don't call yourself stupid. Look at what it is you would prefer to do. And remember that for a long time, I was told, could you look in the mirror and say, I love you? I could not. I can today because I realized that I'm as worthy as anyone else. And I think worthiness is one of the things in a difficult relationship. In my case, I thought I was doing everything wrong. So I tried to do new things. But when those didn't work, I began to become more and more resentful. And when you get resentful, you're not able to forgive anyone. And you certainly don't make your own behavior a better. You don't make it better if you're telling yourself how stupid you are and why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people can resonate with beating themselves up with their own stick and then wondering why nothing's improving.
Yes. But we have a quote from Einstein that says, you cannot solve the problem by using the same thinking that you had when you started the problem. So you have to look at yourself in a more open way. And that can be hard at first.
Absolutely. I think it can be very hard because unfortunately, we don't know what we don't know. So it's not about looking at yourself and thinking, oh my God, how come I, like you said, been so stupid? Why did I engage in those behaviors? But the reason that you did was because you didn't know any better. You weren't given these tools. You didn't have that awareness. So don't beat yourself up.
That's right.
You're not alone, and you don't need to criticize yourself for not knowing. We all have to get to a point where we attract the awareness and the knowledge and support that we need to actually do know, and then sort of look forward from that, not back, and through critical eyes.
Yes, I like to say today, don't get mad and don't get sad. Get curious. What is going on here? And be open to trying something new that is respectful of yourself as well as respectful of the other persons. And I began to look at the alcoholic in my life as someone who was unable to love himself, much less anyone else. And because he saw things that happen as if they were personal affronts. And they weren't really, but he didn't understand that. So every time, when he was a child, his father died in World War II. And he was in the Navy. And so after his father died, they had to leave the place where Navy veterans' families lived. And he took that as a personal affront. When you look at it, obviously, there were other Navy families waiting for places. And so since his father was no longer in the Navy, they couldn't live there anymore. So that's one example. And so he was just an enraged human being. And by the way, he did get sober after we split up, which makes me think, let people, give them the dignity to do what they need to do for themselves. You don't have to condone behavior that is unkind and hurtful, but you don't have to live with it either. And so by leaving that, by stopping that marriage, both of us were given a possibility for a new life. And he found, this doesn't always happen, but he found sobriety after that was over. And we actually got back together again later on after about 7 years.
Wow. And is that still the situation now? Are you still together?
No, he died 23 years ago. of heart trouble. Now there was some, I think, some heart problems, physical heart problems in the family, but I also see that there was a spiritual problem as well. And he even remarked one time, they call alcohol spirits for a reason, and he was looking for spirit, but he was looking in the wrong places. And later on, he was able to discover that. But at any rate, everyone can find something new if they choose to. And again, we have our choices. We have our own choices. We can decide to be angry and bitter and be a victim, or we can decide, okay, that's done. Now I can move on and feel more like a victor, not a victim.
Great stuff.
I was able to do that.
Excellent. So you were together, did you say, for about 16 years, but then did you actually get divorced?
Yes, we divorced, and then he did what he had to do, and finally, after about 4 or 5 years later, he found sobriety, and so we would see each other from time to time. We'd go to a movie on a Friday, and then he decided to come to California, and he would call me, and at the time we were in Ohio, he would call and say, "How's the weather there?" And finally, I came out here to spend time with him, and so we lived together for about 5 years before he died of a heart attack. So, but because we tried to make a good relationship together, but much of the past kind of interfered with that. But we did learn a lot.
And how was it different? The first, I suppose, early years of your relationship when he was in that addictive phase to what it was for you after he became sober.
Well, he was a person you could talk to it then. When someone's under the influence of something outside of themselves, like drugs or alcohol, they're not reasonable people. He was being reasonable, and because I had had those years of support with other women, I was able to see beyond some of those past things. And of course, there are two basic things that we really have to have in order to try something, to try to amend things or to find a new relationship, is, first of all, forgiveness, starting with yourself. Forgive yourself for doing things that you can't believe you did. Forgive yourself for being unkind to yourself as well as to others. And realize in the case of alcoholism or drug addiction, it's the drug that runs the relationship. When you get that out of there, you have a better chance of trying to discover what it is you care about the person. You begin to see why somebody might make an unkind remark. It's not because they're horrible or you're horrible. It's because there's something there that you need to look at that needs to be changed. So we had the drugs out of the picture. So that gave us a better opportunity to try to understand one another and develop a good relationship.
Wow. So if you was sort of speaking to your younger self and in the early years of this relationship, what advice do you think you'd give her?
Well, I think I wouldn't have stayed with him. I would have. We had a daughter, and I would have left when she was a baby. I'm sure. But then I wouldn't have learned anything about myself.
So do you think it could have, though, inspired him to, I suppose, heal his sobriety at an earlier stage? I mean, I'm thinking now probably of if there's any listeners now that are in that situation in the early years of a relationship where they have got a partner that's hooked on some sort of addictive substance, whether that's alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, what advice would you give that person?
I would tell them to immediately get support. And that's not a weakness. You're not alone. Other people can learn from you as well, even though you don't understand what's going on. But as you work with someone else who understands this, and it could be a therapist, it can be groups. In my case, I had a group that I could go to, and other women who had healed much further than I had. So we could share with one another. And as I said the things that I needed to say, when I said, I promised to help this person, and you're telling me that it's okay to be separated, they would help me understand that, let people build their lives, let them understand their own, who they are and their own situation. And because I was working on myself without this distraction of fixing this other person, we're just not here to fix other people.
Isn't that the truth?
We're here to support ourselves and to support others in their growth as a human being. But we're not here to tell people what to do or to scream at them because you don't like what they're doing. That gets you nowhere. So the first thing is forgiveness, and the second is gratitude. Gratitude for what you do have, even if it's small. We had one day with no argument, or
yeah,
or we had argument that was positive. We learned something about each other.
Yeah. Or it might even be that you never heard that person, say sorry before, and you heard them say it this time, or at least show it.
Yes, that's right. So as each of you, even those little things that you're having to work on, being able to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I found that was difficult to say, I'm sorry, especially if you think you're right. I was quite righteous.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to feel that way, if you're not the partner in a relationship where, you're the one that is taking the alcohol or drugs or impact, I suppose, not what's the word, affected by these addictions. You can feel as though you're the righteous one, if you like, and
yes.
And if you love the person, you want to fix them, and of course you want them to be healthy and off the drugs. But the way to fix that person isn't to, like you say, have that in mind. It's literally to leave them to heal and do whatever they need to do for themselves. They have to be able to, and they have to be ready to do it for themselves first and foremost. And they're not going to do it just because you're, waggling your self-righteous finger at them and telling them to.
So true. Yes, that simply invites a reaction of the same kind of thing. You reap what you sow. And I remember I had to learn some sentences so that to avoid an argument, I would say, you could be right. And I learned to say that you could be right. And before we got back together, talking on the phone, I would say, well, you could be right. And I had that sentence by the phone when I was learning how to do that.
Wow, that's a great tip. I think you ought to repeat that, because that, I think, is something that would really help somebody in the here and now to remember to say.
Right. So that stops. There's no argument when you say that. How can you argue with, well, you could be right? Oh, okay. So you don't have the argument when you say that. Another thing another sentence I also had was, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I would never get an argument back on that either. I'm sorry you feel that way. So that stopped whatever was unpleasant from occurring. And there was just nothing to say then. So you change the subject or go on with something else. And it also, so then that also gives you a moment for thinking. Oh, I could be right. Well, let's see. What was I thinking? So those helped me a great deal.
Like you say, even if you don't actually agree with what they're saying you could be right is a great tip for ending a potential conflict situation, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that was all, I think, probably good for me to realize that, hey, stop being so righteous.
Yeah.
You could be right.
And what was the other one you said? You could be right. What was the other one? The other sentence?
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no comeback for that. So I actually had those written down and carried them around with me so that until I learned to say them immediately.
And it became, I suppose, a good habit and behaviour to remember, because you'd practiced it, and to start with, you'd had to have those little reminders. But I suppose after a while, like with anything that you practice, it becomes automatic, doesn't it?
Yes, it became automatic. So that, and then I could use it in other situations as well. At work, if there was someone who appeared to be unreasonable, and instead of getting incensed or try to acquit myself of something, I could just say that. And that it's also it's a diffusing thing as well. It's diffusing, and then it makes you reflect. And reflection time is important too.
I agree. And not only for you, but for the other person, because if you're in a situation where somebody's just said to you, could be right, and they're waiting for you to be defensive or aggressive back so that they can escalate the argument, like you say, it stops them in their tracks. But not only that, it gives them time to reflect on what they've just said. Yes.
And being defensive, I think, you don't need to do that. I think that causes, there's the back and forth thing of, well, that's another thing. You said blah, blah, blah. Bringing up the past is also something that's not helpful. To say, well, you said this and therefore blah, blah. So let the past be the past and move on from there. And so when we were trying to build a relationship, we would never bring up the past. And if there was usually it's a misunderstanding. Often I notice so often someone gets so angry. Well, you didn't even call me. Well, the other person may not have been thinking that was the best thing to do. They weren't trying to be hurtful, but they were trying to back off, or maybe they had nothing to say, or maybe they thought you didn't want to hear from them. So again, our perception, supposing that's what some other person's motive is not always a productive line of thinking either. We don't really know.
Of course we don't, and we're just making assumptions, aren't we? And
yes.
Those assumptions can lead us down rabbit holes that have nothing to do with what that person's thinking whatsoever. He could or she could be thinking a million and one other things than what you're assuming.
Right. You might be making up a wonderful mystery novel or something, but you're not finding the truth of the situation at all. Sometimes I say we terrify ourselves with our imagination.
Yeah, And don't we worry about things that are not worth worrying about or that are just in our imaginations 99% of the time?
Yes, right. They never happened. They never will happen, but except in our minds.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to try to be aware of. Am I making this up? How do I know this?
Yeah, and because it's not to do with you and it's to do with somebody else, you can't know it. You can't know.
That's right. That's right. And if you if you get defensive about, well, yeah, but he always did that. There's another word, always.
Yes.
That people use in arguments, and
or
that
never
escalates the argument, or never. Yes, you never help.
Yeah.
Oh, except for last Saturday, and
yeah, when they think about it.
Now that I think about it, exactly.
Yes, it's amazing, isn't it? How I hear a lot of women quite often refer to things that have happened in the past and always assume then that there's going to be a repeat pattern and make assumptions about their partner based on the things that they've done in the past, as we all do. But the thing is, I've heard this expression before. It's like when driving. If you keep looking in that rear view mirror and never looking forward, at some point you're going to have a crash.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's a great analogy. Yes. And we don't have to be products of our past. We don't have to hold on to those things. Letting things go is a difficult thing. But, and some people think that forgiveness, for example, is making the terrible action okay. It is not. Forgiveness is really about helping yourself. It's for you. The other person may not be around, has no idea that you're forgiving them, and it's not important. What's important is that you see that the other person that the other person has dignity, no matter what they did, but the other person is a sacred, living human being. And when you can say, I let this go, this anger, it is inside me. The anger's hurting me, not the other person. If you're trying to make someone pay for what they did, you're not going to do anything with forgiveness at all. Forgiveness is saying that you are okay and that the other person did not understand. And as you continue with not forgiving bad behavior, bad behavior is not okay, but forgive the individual. The individual is not bad. It's what they did. And you certainly do not have to take that kind of behavior, but you don't have to destroy the other human being either. So you let it go. And that means you're taking care of yourself. You're not giving yourself high blood pressure over your anger.
I agree with that because, like you said, the only person it hurts by having the anger, by having the resentment is you. That's the only person it's hurting. And it's, at some point with all that stress, if you keep going through those negative emotions, you're going to make yourself ill. It's going to affect your health. So you're not doing yourself any favor by hanging on to those negative emotions about that person. And by releasing it, like you said, by letting it go and having forgiveness for the behavior or behaviors, then you're actually, giving yourself your power back. You're liberating yourself.
Yes.
And allowing yourself to live a healthy future life.
Yeah. If you hold on to the anger and resentment, it's like you've chained yourself to that past. Those are chains that you're carrying around, and they're a burden. You don't need those. And so you do, in forgiveness too, is forgive yourself for allowing those things to happen to yourself, and realize that now you're not doing that, and so you let that go, and you certainly don't try to go back into a toxic place. to fix it, you also have to let that go. We're not fixing other people. We're developing and growing in our own way.
Yeah.
So, someone said, continuing to be angry is like drinking poison and thinking the other person is going to get theirs. It doesn't work.
No, and I firmly believe, regardless of whether people have or come from a place of what's the word, whether you're a spiritual person from a religious sense or not, that you don't have to be a part of organized religion to be a spiritual person. But I always believe myself, and I'm not in any way involved in any organized religion. This is just me speaking from my own self, being and feeling quite spiritual in having my own standards, having my own boundaries, having my own sets of morals and beliefs, and just believing in the power of love over fear. That, the universe takes care of things. You don't need to wreak vengeance on anybody. That I believe in that karma.
Right. Again, you reap what you sow. And so if you are going around saying bad things about people are going to go around saying bad things about you. I mean, it's physics even. What goes around comes around is another expression that people use to show that if you want to live a happy life, you don't give other people unhappiness, because if you give something good, you're going to receive good right back. Maybe not from the same person. If you're trying to do something good for a sick human being who can't make reasonable behavior happen, then that person is not able to give good. But the good will come from somewhere else.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And usually tenfold, what you've put out there, I believe. So like you say, the person who you've done good for might not reciprocate, but that doesn't matter. The good will come from somewhere else and multifold.
Yes, and I've just found that to be true. And of course, then you're living with yourself better. Your relationship with yourself, you can pat yourself on the back. Boy, I really helped that other person today by what I said, or a smile when I'm out shopping, or those things can lift a person's spirits, and they lift yours as well when you do that. But you can't expect reasonable behavior from an unreasonable person. Just distance yourself.
Yeah, and you never know. You know what? You never know what your legacy is going to be. And I learned this as a valuable lesson when I watched a clip from Oprah Winfrey, who was speaking to her friend Mary Angelou about her legacy, and she was going on and on about, she was saying her school that she built in South Africa was going to be her greatest and biggest legacy, and that was what she felt, all her life had been about, is achieving this legacy of building this school. And Mary Angelou says, hang on a minute, no, that isn't just your legacy. Your legacy is every person you've touched, every person who's listened to your show that's been inspired, every young mother who might have otherwise not sought help for a destructive relationship, who's now picking up the phone for support. She says, you have no idea what your legacy will be, because you just don't know in day-to-day moments who you touch.
Yes, so true. It really is true. And I worked with, I was an academic advisor as well as a teacher, and I used these principles that I learned once I rid myself of the toxic situation. Now, the situation, you don't have to depend just on situations. You can be untoxic to yourself in a toxic situation if you're not able to get out of it. But you need to distance yourself from people who are toxic in order to develop and grow. At any rate, you still, I lost my train of thought.
I was speaking about the Oprah situation, about legacy.
Yes. So you live with what you give. And if you give something positive to others, regardless of the circumstances, you're going to feel better about yourself. And there are other people who will notice, even though you may not notice who they are. They're noticing. When you give smiles to other people, people are happy to see you. If you are happy with yourself, it shows.
I agree. And you know what? I always even make an effort, to do the smallest little act of kindness. So whenever I go to the supermarket, and I notice that somebody's got a name tag, because I live in Spain, I'll always say buenos dias or buenas tardes or buenas noches, and say their name, to the checkout person, so that they know that I've noticed who they are. And you know what? It really lights them up.
Yes. I enjoy being able to do that too, because someone who they're in that store, they're working 8 hours with other people, and it's wonderful to think that they are being able to have some smiles and some thank yous during their work time. There are probably a few people who might be contentious and unpleasant, but if you yourself give something good, you're going to feel good, and you're going to make the clerk or whoever you're dealing with good as well.
I 100% agree. And I think it's such an easy thing that we can all put in place, isn't it? Something like that, just noticing somebody who you're interacting with, what their name is, and thanking them, or saying good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to them.
Yes, if you have a harmonious feeling about others and yourself, it goes out like a pebble thrown onto the water. Those ripples go out. Your vibration is, you pass it on to other people as well.
Excellent.
So just love yourself first.
Yeah, absolutely. It is about loving yourself first. So any other tips that you'd like to add, Carolann, about living the good life in terms of, from your own experience, you had this toxic relationship with your husband and managed to reconcile that. And even, he managed to get sober and dry, and you worked through quite a lot of your previous issues by the sound of things, and learned a lot of valuable lessons. So any other advice or tips?
Yes, I would say, and look at your own, what is it that you have? What would you love in your life? After my husband died, some friends of mine said, Carolann, go out, do something. And I love music and I love to dance. And they told me about line dancing. I didn't have to have a partner. So I went out and did something that I love to do. And I met someone else. I met someone because I was enjoying what I was doing. I was wrapped up in growing and developing as a human being. And that attracted someone else who was interested in growing and developing as a good human being. So I met someone else. I met someone dancing, and although I was only line dancing, it took about a year before I was able even to dance with him, because I was in a line of people, and he said he didn't want to ask me to dance in front of all those people and me say no. But I think what happened is, what I suggest is ask yourself this question: what would I love? And don't let wherever you are right now stop you from dreaming the dream of who you are, and doing what you can to develop that. Because that's, again, loving yourself and realizing that you have a gift to give. I think we all have a gift to give. And from my experience, that experience, that miserable experience, gave me a gift. And the gift was I learned to love myself and realize that there are all kinds of conditions and situations you can get into, but you have choices, and you can make a choice to love yourself and discover what it is that you can do to make your life. And once you make your life productive and feeling good, you are giving that to other people. So I think sometimes women, we put ourselves last, but I have to take care of the kids. I have to do this. I have to do that. But remember, you have to take care of yourself. And when you get on the airplane, they tell you if the little oxygen masks come down, put yours on first. Because if you don't, you can't help others. So I say, put on your own oxygen mask, no matter what your situation is right now, and know that you have something positive to offer, and work on what would you love. Sometimes it's not easy to get into a situation, to get out of a bad situation. But when you consider it's okay, you are worthy and you have something to give, do it. Work on that. And it may take time, but when you repeat telling yourself, I am okay, I am worthy, and I have this that I would love to do it. Even though other people say, you can't do that. No. If it's something that you feel you have, that you want to do, and that will make your life better, then do it.
100%.
But not out of anger, not out of resentment, but because you are worthy and you have something to give.
Fabulous. I love those words. And it doesn't have to be huge, does it? I mean, this is about sometimes not thinking too big, because that could be overwhelming. It's just thinking about what small baby step can I take towards that?
Exactly. Like maybe just something in today, maybe I can clean out a drawer, or fix something different for dinner, or try some new makeup. I don't know. It's true. Those little things that make you feel like, yes, I'm okay.
Yeah. And it's all about, like you say, putting yourself first and knowing that you deserve that. Because if you are not doing the best for you, you can't be the best for anybody outside of yourself anyway, whether that's your children, exactly, your partner, your work colleagues, or whoever.
Exactly. Yeah. So we need to love ourselves, and then we can spread the love much more easily.
Yeah. And it's also recognizing that it isn't selfish to do that. It's actually selfless.
Yes, that's really hard to realize that taking care of yourself is not selfish. Exactly. I agree.
Well, on that note, Carolann, if we've got any listeners that would like to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do and your specific area of expertise around all this, what contact information can you pass on right now? And I'll make sure it is always the case that I'll put that in our show notes anyway, but just so that the audience can actually hear what that is straight off the bat.
Yes, well, I am in Los Angeles, but I'm a life mastery consultant, and I study at the Life Mastery Institute. And my website is my name, Carolann DeSelms, .lifemasteryconsultant.com.
And that's Carolann without an E.
That's right, Carolann without an E, and then DeSelms, DESELMS, lifemasteryconsultant.com. I think I added an extra dot in there.
I'm sure if it's not something that comes up, they can try the alternative. But even so, our listeners will get that information anyway within the show notes. So rest assured that information will come out for you, Carolann. So thank you so much for your insights and wisdom around, what is a very, very, emotive subject, really, isn't it? When you talk about
Yes.
toxic relationships. Yeah.
Yes. And have a good relationship with yourself, and you'll discover new relationships.
That are really great and healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Healthy relationships. Yes, they are possible.
They are, very much so. Okay, well, on that note, I'm going to end this particular episode. Thank you so much, Carolann, for your wisdom and insights yet again. And maybe, we can have you on again talking about another specific issue around having and creating great relationships. In the meantime,
Thank you.
listeners, you know what I always say, true love starts with opening your hearts. Thank you.
Yes.
Until next time, goodbye.
Thanks, Lyn.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.